The auctioneer's voice boomed, offering flawless alien beauty to the highest bidder. But amid the neon lights and hungry stares, one human's gaze stopped on a trembling figure in the shadows. She wasn't the most beautiful, not by their standards. She was quiet, bruised, clutching her sister's hand like it was her last lifeline. When no one bid on her, the crowd laughed. But the human didn't. He stepped forward, not for the one everyone wanted, but for the one too broken to speak. And in that moment, everything changed. They called it a premium tier auction, where credits bought obedience, where beauty was a commodity lined up in chains. The hall stank of burnt ozone and stale sweat, thick with the breath of bidders from every sector, human and alien alike. Spotlights roamed the rusted metal stage, illuminating a steel cage at its center. Inside knelt two alien girls, clearly sisters by posture if not by feature. The older one, taller, fierce-eyed, built like she'd endured too many fights, stared back at the crowd with silent defiance. But the younger, smaller, thinner, her pale lavender skin smeared with grime, clung tightly to her sister's hand, head bowed, shoulders trembling. When the auctioneer barked out the terms for the next bid, the human man didn't move. Not yet. His gaze was fixed, not on the polished, practiced girl behind display glass, not on the preened, exotic bodies paraded for maximum price. No, his attention was trapped by that fragile grip, that desperate little hand clinging with everything she had. Unit 17, the auctioneer sneered, jabbing his electroprod at the cage, causing the smaller girl to flinch violently. Sub-tier, untrained, comes with her defective sibling. A few snorts from the crowd. A woman with too many rings laughed. Not worth collar metal, someone muttered. The older girl growled low, instinctive, feral, but the prod sparked near her neck and she recoiled. The younger one only pressed closer, wide eyes reflecting the flickering lights above. Then the human stepped forward. His voice didn't rise. He didn't posture. "I'll take them both," he said flatly. The crowd turned. The auctioneer blinked. "Sir, surely you meant Unit 4, she's prime tier, trained for..." "Both," he said again louder. "Those two? In the cage?" Silence rippled. Then jeers. "You want the broken one?" someone scoffed. "The runt who can't even stand?" The human didn't answer. He was already reaching for the transfer pad, holding his ID chip out for scan. A few seconds later, the collar lights dimmed. The prod retracted, and the sisters, still gripping each other like the world was ending, were pulled out of the cage, blinking under the industrial light. When they were led to him, the smaller girl nearly stumbled. The older one's body braced like a shield. But the human crouched, not to grab, not to leash, but to look at them eye level. "You're safe now," he said softly. "You're coming home." They didn't answer, but neither pulled away. Later, on his freighter, the atmosphere changed. The clang of metal softened under quiet hums of navigation systems. The girls sat wrapped in thermal blankets on the side bench, shackles gone, collars deactivated. The younger one, still not speaking, held tightly to the edge of her blanket, watching the stars slide past the windows. The older girl hadn't slept yet. Her body remained angled slightly in front of her sister, arms resting, but ready. "Do you have names?" he asked quietly. No reply. "I won't force you," he added. "Just thought I'd ask." The younger girl opened her mouth, then closed it. The older one watched him for a moment. "Isha," she said finally. Then, touching her sister's shoulder gently, "Selly." He nodded. "I'm Corin." The older girl, this Isha, nodded once in return. The ship drifted on. They didn't speak again that night. But neither asked for the cage back. Over the next week, things changed slowly. Isha began walking the corridor, inspecting parts of the freighter with wary interest. She spoke rarely, direct, efficient, but never rude. She was intelligent, observant. Selly, on the other hand, remained silent, moving like a shadow that feared light. But she followed her sister everywhere, and when offered food she hesitated, then took it with both hands and ate with quiet desperation. One morning, Corin left a cloth-wrapped package on their bunk. When Selly opened it, she found a soft shirt and leggings, real clothes, not slave rags. She blinked, startled, and then hugged the bundle tightly to her chest. That afternoon, she whispered her first words. "Thank you." He didn't ask her to say more. He only smiled. A few days later, Isha asked, "Why us?" He looked at her across the dining table. "Because you were holding her hand," he said simply. "Because she was terrified, and you stayed with her. I don't want property, I want people." Isha studied him long, hard, then looked away. But her fingers drummed against the table, restless. That night, Selly laughed for the first time. It was small, Barely a breath, but when Corin handed her a makeshift plush toy stitched from old cloth, she held it like treasure. Isha watched her sister's smile grow like morning sunlight, and for the first time, her shoulders slumped in peace. That night, they didn't sleep on the bench. They slept on real beds, sheets, pillows, warmth. He didn't lock the door. He never had. The next mission wasn't kind. Corin returned bruised, limping, carrying a supply case and blood on his collar. Selly gasped when she saw him. Isha reached for her knife. But when he waved them off and collapsed into the co-pilot chair, both girls stood frozen. "I'm okay," he muttered. "Just tired." That night, Isha stayed seated beside him while he slept upright, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Selly curled beside the medkit, refusing to leave his side. The next morning, when he woke, they were both there. Neither said it aloud. But something had shifted. Days became routine. Then weeks. One evening, Corin found a drawing tucked into his datapad. 2 girls. 1 man. A small ship. Stars. Home. He didn't ask who drew it. But when Selly smiled at him over breakfast, he knew. Months later, while docking at a neutral station, a former bidder from the auction recognized Isha. He leered, reached toward her arm. "Still not for sale," he sneered. Isha didn't flinch. She stepped backward. But before she could reply, Corin stepped between them. "Touch her," he said coldly, "and you won't get that hand back." The man backed off, laughing, but unease lingered. That night, back aboard the freighter, Isha stood by the window, arms crossed. "You don't own us," she said. "But you protect us." "Why?" Corin looked up from his tools. "Because everyone deserves someone who does." Isha nodded, just once, and turned back to the stars. The next time Selly hugged him, it wasn't out of fear. It was because she wanted to. The sisters still slept near each other. Still kept close. But now there were moments, quiet, tender, where they laughed. Where they played cards. Where they helped cook. Isha fixed one of the stabilizers. Selly learned how to navigate. He gave them space. But always stayed close. And one day when Selly, smiling, reached for his hand without flinching, Isha didn't stop her. She only looked up and said, "We chose you too." That night, Corin watched them sleep from the doorway. 2 girls, once bought like property, now curled in warmth, faces soft, breathing even. He didn't need thanks. He only needed this. A life where they never had to be afraid again.